It started like any other day in the political landscape of America. But no one anticipated the storm that would erupt in the nation's capital. The Supreme Court was in session, and a special congressional hearing was underway. Jasmine Crockett, the fiery and unyielding representative known for her fierce advocacy on social justice and civil rights, had been invited to testify on systemic racism and judicial practices. Among the attendees was none other than Chief Justice John Roberts, known for his conservative stances, yet generally reserved public demeanor. As tension simmered during the heated discussion, things took an ugly and shocking turn. Reports from inside the chamber say that Roberts, frustrated by Crockett's relentless questioning and unapologetic tone, blurted out the now infamous line, "Why don't you go back to Africa?" Gasps reportedly echoed through the hall as silence overtook the room. For a moment, no one knew how to respond. Had the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court really just said something so historically violent, racially charged, and profoundly inappropriate? Crockett, known for never backing down, did not flinch. While many expected her to storm out or break down, she simply straightened her back, took a breath, and began to speak. What followed was not just a reply, it was a speech, a powerful, emotionally charged address that held every person in the room spellbound. With unwavering eyes and a calm, steady voice, she began to dismantle the centuries of systemic racism embedded in that one sentence. She reminded the Chief Justice and the nation of the deep scars carried by African Americans. "Let me be clear," she said. "My ancestors did not get on cruise ships voluntarily. They were shackled and stolen. If you think I should go back then, maybe you need to check who built the foundations of this country." Her words struck not just the ears, but the hearts of every listener. Echoing with the weight of history and the fire of truth, media outlets exploded. Within minutes, the video clip went viral, circulating across every major platform from Twitter to TikTok. Hashtags like Stand With Crockett and Roberts Resign started trending within hours. People from every background began to weigh in civil rights leaders, politicians, actors, athletes, and ordinary citizens. Some conservative pundits attempted to downplay the comment, claiming Roberts was misunderstood or taken out of context, but the footage spoke for itself. There was no denying what had been said, nor the centuries of pain it represented. For many Americans, it felt like the curtain had finally been pulled back on the very institution meant to uphold justice. It wasn't just about one comment, it was about a system and a legacy. And Crockett had not only exposed it, but confronted it in real time. In the days following the incident, public pressure on John Roberts reached a boiling point. Protests erupted outside the Supreme Court building, with demonstrators holding signs that read, "You go back to justice," and "Racism and robes must end." Meanwhile, legal scholars and constitutional experts began discussing the possibility of impeachment, or at least a formal censure by Congress. Roberts, who had spent decades building an image of impartiality and judicial restraint, now found himself at the center of a national reckoning. And in the middle of it all stood Jasmine Crockett, graceful, composed, but unwavering. She began appearing on major news shows, not to stoke division, but to use the moment as a teaching point. "This isn't just about me," she said in one interview. "This is about every Black American who has ever been told they don't belong in a land their ancestors built." What made Crockett's response so powerful was not just her eloquence, but her refusal to be consumed by anger. She spoke with authority, with intellect, and with compassion. She addressed not just Roberts, but the nation's conscience. In one viral clip, she stated, "This is bigger than personal insult. This is about institutional arrogance, about how someone in the highest judicial seat can still carry the weight of centuries-old racism and feel bold enough to say it out loud." That line in particular resonated deeply with viewers across demographics. College campuses held forums, churches gave sermons, and schools played her speech in classrooms. It had become more than a moment, it had become a movement. One that challenged Americans to look in the mirror and ask, who are we really? And who do we want to become? Roberts, under increasing pressure, released a carefully worded statement. "I regret the words spoken in a moment of frustration," he said. and I deeply apologize to Congresswoman Crockett and to all Americans who were hurt. But the apology, many felt, rang hollow. Critics pointed out that it took 4 days, and relentless public outcry for any acknowledgement to come. Moreover, there was no mention of stepping down or taking accountability beyond words. Meanwhile, Crockett continued to rise as a national voice. Invitations to speak poured in from Harvard to Howard, and civil rights groups began organizing under a new campaign, Crockett's Call, urging judicial reforms and greater representation in the courts. What had started as a vile insult had now sparked one of the most intense and necessary conversations on race and justice in modern American history. Even within political circles, the impact was seismic. Democrats united in demanding accountability, while some moderate Republicans began to distance themselves from Roberts' legacy. A bipartisan resolution condemning the remark passed swiftly in the House. Marking a rare moment of unity in a deeply divided Congress, Jasmine Crockett, in a stunning act of poise, declined to attend the vote. Instead, she visited a community center in South Dallas, where she spoke to young black students about resilience, pride, and power. Her message was clear: your presence in these spaces is resistance. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The images of that visit Crockett surrounded by children in a circulated just as widely as the original courtroom exchange, and perhaps that was her greatest victory, turning an attempt to diminish her into an opportunity to uplift others. International media also picked up the story. From the BBC to Al Jazeera, the incident was dissected as a symbol of America's ongoing struggle with its racial past. Editorials questioned how the leader of the highest court could display such ignorance and still expect trust from the people. The global embarrassment was palpable. Meanwhile, human rights organizations began linking the incident to broader issues in U.S. jurisprudence, including the over-incarceration of black Americans and racial disparities in sentencing. Crockett's words were quoted in parliamentary debates in Canada, anti-racism campaigns in France, and student protests in South Africa. Her message had gone global, and all of it stemmed from a moment meant to humiliate, but that instead ignited unity and awareness like few others in recent memory. As time passed, Crockett didn't rest. She launched a new foundation dedicated to judicial accountability and education. The goal was clear: to make sure no young black American ever again had to hear the phrase "go back to Africa" from someone in power. At the launch event, surrounded by activists, scholars, and supporters, she declared, "We don't need to go back. We're already here, and we're not going anywhere." That powerful affirmation was met with thunderous applause and tears. It was a moment of clarity for many, a reminder that strength comes not just from fighting back, but from knowing who you are. Crockett had transformed an attempted degradation into a declaration of identity, dignity, and defiance. In the end, history will remember that day not for the words of hatred spoken, but for the grace and strength with which they were answered. Jasmine Crockett didn't just defend herself, she defended generations. She reminded a nation of its wounds, but also of its potential to heal. And while John Roberts' legacy may be forever stained by that one line, Crockett's legacy has only just begun. She turned pain into power, ignorance into education, and insult into inspiration. And in doing so, she gave voice not only to herself, but to millions who had been told, in ways subtle and explicit, that they didn't belong. Jasmine Crockett stood tall, and through her, so did a nation ready to confront its past and fight for a more just future.